and welcome to another Disclosure in the Media episode of The Lifting with Ryan Polencarts and
Hey,
myself.
everybody.
And we're going to be discussing Elder Scrolls Online. Take it away, Ryan.
All right. So, The Elder Scrolls Online is the first multiplayer experience within the Elder Scrolls series. And it came out, I believe, in like 2015. And it was made as an MMO. So, MMOs are a bit different than basic RPGs. There's a lot more balancing needed because, like, you have a ton of people running around, all that can just kind of do whatever they want. So, it messes up a little bit, like some of the open worldness of it, but the game is still really good lore-wise and has a lot of cool galactic history elements to it, so that's why we're going to go into this one. So to give a bit of background to the Elder Scrolls Online, it actually takes place before all of the other games we've already talked about in this series. And that is because ESO takes place in the Second Era, year 582. Now, the first normal Elder Scrolls game, Arena, that takes place around Third Era year like 380. So you can see that we have a very large gap of time here. And to show just how big this gap of time is, Skyrim takes place in Fourth Era year 201. And Skyrim's the game we just talked about. ESO takes place 904 years to be exact beforehand in Second Era year 852. So that just a giant amount of time before, and this game takes place during a period in Tamrielic history called the Interregnum. And Interregnum is actually a word that is used even by historians here that just means between a period between two empires. And the empires in question here are the Tiber Septic Empire that founds the Third Era and the Reman Empire that founded the Second Era. So the Reman Cyrodiil started the Second Empire, and he was also a dragonborn, and some events took place, and he became emperor. Started his empire, but his empire fell, but the era didn't end. And because his empire wasn't really all that long, it was him, his immediate heir, and his heir's heir, and then it kind of just fizzled out, and a group of, like a council took over the rulership of Tamriel, and all the provinces kind of fell into their own lifestyle. So here, we're into a period now years later, and this guy, Varen Acularius, who is a powerful warlord within Cyrodiil, which at this point is pretty much being run by warlords. The Akaviri Potentate, which was that council that took over after Raymond's empire fell, has kind of fizzled out into nothing. They've even died out, and this is around 580 of the Second Era when this occurs. And you see our friend Varen here, he gets a group of allies together to help him take the throne and legitimize himself because he is not of the dragon's blood. And
the picture you're showing isn't him, Ryan. The picture you're showing is of the...
Oh, I know, I'm going to it.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good. So this is actually Varen, but Varen didn't look like this guy in the cloak yet. He just kind of looked like a sort of like a Roman emperor figure. He kind of almost just looks like what depictions of Augustus Caesar in our world look like. But what happens is he gets these three people. This is Lyris Titanborn, a Nord general, and his personal bodyguard. Sai Sahan, the swords master of the Alakir warriors from Hammerfell. And this man right here, who is one of the most important figures for his ascension to the throne, is the Chancellor of the region of Cyrodiil called Nibene, as well as the Speaker of the Elder Council, Abner Tharn, who, if we actually look back to Elder Scrolls 1, one of his far descendants, Yeagar Tharn, is the one that tried to usurp the empires then. That's just a bit of like tie-in to the other games. But in addition to him, he gets this guy, Metamarco, the King of Worms, to join him. And Metamarco is an extremely powerful mage. But the type of mage he is called a necromancer, which means he raises the dead and uses them to create armies. Metamarco is needed basically because the ritual needed to make Varen have the codes of the Dragonborns, needs a very strong magical person to aid him. Well, what happens is Metamarco is actually a Daedric worshiper, and he worships this guy right here, Molag Bal. Now, Molag Bal is the Prince of Plots, Domination, Rape, and Enslavement. And Molag Bal's realm of oblivion is called Cold Harbor, and Cold Harbor looks like this. Well, Cold Harbor is actually a mirror image of Tamriel if it was under Molag Bal's control. Well, Molag Bal pretty much has the only intention Molag Bal has is to really make all of Tamriel under his control. And his plan is to use these dark anchors, which are portals attached to large chain engines, to pull pieces of Tamriel into his dimension bit by bit. So you can see there's multiple of them dropped. They're dropped by his cultists, and you can see even the stones from this bridge are starting to get absorbed up into his dimension. And they'd have to stay down for a long time for them to get sucked up fully, but that's his plan. And Metamarco, being his like mortal lieutenant, he's with it. He's gonna help the Molag Bal guy. So what happens is you have Metamarco actually betray the group, and while they're using this ritual to start to make Vernacularis legitimized in the eyes of the gods, he betrays them and opens a portal so that his master Molag Bal can breach into the world. And Sai Sahan, this guy in the middle who's like cracking his knuckles, he steals the Amulet of Kings and hides it away. But Metamarco is able to capture Lyris as well as Varen here. And Abnar Tharn, sensing an opportunity to better himself and keep it power, joins Metamarco. It's kind of explained that he does this sort of begrudgingly, actually extremely begrudgingly, and does it more to keep the appearance that the Empire hasn't really fallen, but just allied with the Daedra. Because his daughter, who is actually married to Varys, his daughter's married to Varys, and her name is Regia Tharn, and she becomes the ruling empress during the period where they say Varen's sick, but he's not. So what happens here now is Metamarco pretty much takes over everything. And because Molag Bal is not strong, has not taken enough of the world yet to come into the world himself. So Metamarco is kind of the ruler of Tamriel at this point, or at least central Tamriel. Well, around this, Metamarco is also ordering all the Empire's armies to attack every other province, as well as there's some invasions from off of mainland Tamriel coming about. So if we go to the map of... Oh, crap. If we go to this map, there's an invasion coming from this way, from Akavir. Metamarco knows about this invasion, so he doesn't invade the eastern part of Tamriel. He sends his armies up here, though, and mostly down into southern Hammerfell, and then armies of a group called the Sea Elves attack this area down here around Arul, the Somerset Isle, this big island chain off the side of Tamriel. So you see how these areas are red, yellow, and blue, respectively. At the same time, various alliances form across Tamriel to fight off these invasions. So up here in the north, you have the Daggerfall Covenant, which is made up primarily of the Bretons of High Rock, the Red Guards of Hammerfell, and the Orcs from Orsinium, which is a city-state within High Rock. Next, you have the Aldmeri Dominion, the first Aldmeri Dominion, not to be confused with the one we talked about in Skyrim, which is actually the third Aldmeri Dominion, which is made up primarily of the Khajiit of Elsweyr, the Wood Elves of Valenwood, and the High Elves of the Somerset Isle. Now, the final one, which is the group that I play as, is the Ebonheart Pact. And the Ebonheart Pact is made up of the Nords of Eastern Skyrim, which is very important for later when we talk about what's going on in the rest of Tamriel at the time. The noble houses of Morrowind's Dark Elven families here in the center, and the tribes of the Argonian Shadows Scales from here in what is commonly called Argonia, but also is called Black Marsh as his province name. So, as you can see, the borders are not provincial based right now. They're fluid because what's happened is there is no central authority anymore. The central authority that was the empire that we've seen throughout the rest of the games is gone. It's weak. It's completely shattered, and it's not even the same empire really. So what we have here is Skyrim, where we adventured the last time. All of like Western and Central Skyrim does not see the king that has joined the Ebonheart Pact as a true Nord. Well, he is a true Nord, but like as a true Nordic hero, and doesn't legit give him like their support. So Eastern and Central and Western Skyrim are independent under another king. Southern Hammerfell, the tribes are more Bedouin-like. They move around. They're nomadic. So some of them aid the Daggerfall Covenant. Others are independent, and the few cities that are there tend to be independent trading groups that trade for their own benefit, both sides of any side of this conflict. In the south, you have the Somerset Isle, which is having its own internal issues, as well as their queen is leading the Aldmeri Dominion, so they're fully in it. All of the Wood Elves are in it, and half of the people of Elsweyr, the Khajiit, are in it because the Main, who is their spiritual leader, has backed the Aldmeri Dominion, but many of them are pacifist people and will not go to war. So the respective leaders of the alliances are Queen Aeren of this Aldmeri Dominion. You have Vivek and Yoren the Skald King sharing rule over the Ebonheart Pact, which is kind of the only way it could stay up because the Tribunal, who are like the man gods of Morrowind, who are alive still at this point, demand that they have some kind of keep rule over Morrowind, but like will pledge their support, but they demand that they are in charge still. And then the Daggerfall Covenant is led by, depending on the period, it is King Emeric of Wayrest or the king of the Hammerfellian Sheik. I forget his name because he was only in it. I think it's Lasad or something. He's only king for a very short time while Emeric is disposed due to attack on him. And in the center here, you have basically the puppet Cyrodiilic Empire. But the main thing is that once all these invasions into these areas have been taken care of, these guys all see themselves as needing to deal with this wayward state that's just sending out armies and attacking all over the place here in the middle. So all of them invade and start fighting each other here in the center of Tamriel, in Cyrodiil. So pretty much the Empire really only holds like one or two forts in Cyrodiil, and the Imperial Isle, which is the big central island right here, and that's it. That's all the Empire holds at this point, because the outer cities and forts of Cyrodiil, except for Cyrodiil, like over here and down here, that they're constantly changing hands between the alliances. Cyrodiil right over here, sort of southwestern Cyrodiil, just above where it says Malab Tor, that is an independent sea kingdom, almost. It's got one major port, and it's like a trade empire. And then down here, it's Nibene, where Abnar Tharn was from, and he's technically in charge there. So that's kind of the overview of what's going on in Tamriel, and this is not even what starts the story. So the story actually starts when Metamarco himself stabs your player character and removes your soul. And you get led down into this dungeon, and he does that, and then you awaken in Cold Harbor in a prison, and you make your character in the prison so that you can like be whoever you want to be, and Lyris breaks you out. She's also a prisoner, but there's a riot, and she's kind of let everybody out, and she lets you out and tells you you have to find the Prophet who's in prison somewhere else in the prison. And you guys fight together and find the Prophet. Well, the type of cell thing, he's basically like an energy trap almost. If you've seen, like, it's like a hologram stand almost, like you'd see in like Star Wars where like they talk, but he's just like locked in it, like an energy pillar there, and he can't get out. And what you have to do to get him out is one person needs to be swapped in. So Lyris, who you don't know at this point that he is Vernacularis, the one-time emperor. At this point, he already looks like this. He's been corrupted because of his greed and want for the throne, as well as the fact that he's been locked up in Cold Harbor for so long without his soul removed. She wasn't corrupted because of some kind of Nord resistance. We don't actually know why. But she, being his bodyguard, gets left behind while he goes and heads out into the world with you. So pretty much the next mission, you have to level up a bit. He tells you to go out and meet the locals of whichever alliance's land you land in. And if you do that and you get a bit stronger, and he summons you back to where he is. And at this point, he's only going by the name The Prophet. That's all he's being called. And he's actually voiced by the guy who plays Dumbledore in the later Harry Potter movies. So it's a cool little tidbit, so it's kind of cool to hear his voice. But
yeah, I believe that's Michael Gambon, I believe his name is.
Yeah, I don't know his name off the top of my head, but like it's that guy. He basically tells you we need to save Lyris because she's very important to stopping this danger threat. And Metamarco, because pretty much you have your soul removed, and your really only goal in all of this is to get your soul back. At this point, at least. And he's like, we need to find Lyris. So you break back into Cold Harbor using a bit of powerful magic, and you break Lyris out of prison. She's like, where's the Prophet? How did you guys escape? And you're like, yeah, he's fine. He's back on Mundus. Because remember, these are pocket dimensions, and Mundus is the mortal plane. So she's like, okay, let's go. And you break her out of prison, and you get back to the Prophet, and she doesn't have her weapons and armor at this point. She's in like rags, like prisoner rags. And he's like, where are your weapons and armor? And she's like, oh, they took them when we first got captured. And he's like, oh, crap, we're going to need your weapons and armor. And so you go back in like a bit later in the game. You're leveled up a bit more, and you go get her weapons and armor, and you deal with some of her past traumas, actually, that Metamarco has put in your way, basically just to try to make her not stand against him. So you help her overcome those past traumas, sort of in the way that people who do inner work have to relook at things and release them. So she gets her stuff back, and then you go back to the Prophet, or Varen. And he goes out and he's like, continue helping the people around here, learning about what the current situation in Tamriel is, and make sure to go to Cyrodiil. Visit Cyrodiil. I want to know what's going on in Cyrodiil. Now, at this point, he still hasn't told you that he was the Emperor at one point of the province. So you go to Cyrodiil, and you're like, oh yeah, the alliances are fighting over it hand and foot, and thousands of people are dying every day, and the scope of the war is absolutely massive. And this is only two sides fighting. Yeah, so that you can see, like, all the people back here, all the fire, all the destruction, the siege engines, and this is really only a fight between two of the alliances. So, it's a massive conflict. Pretty much everyone in Tamriel is involved in some way, shape, or form, even if they aren't part of the kingdoms actually fighting. And so he goes, well, now we need to find Sai Sahan, because he knows Sai Sahan got away with the the Amulet of Kings, because while he was being tortured by Metamarco and Molag Bal, they're basically like, where is Sai Sahan? He got away with the Amulet of Kings, and Varen didn't know that at that point, so they kind of nailed themselves in the coffin when they said that. But Sai Sahan does get captured, but he is able to hide the amulet before he's captured. So he is currently being tortured in a different prison, and the kind of torture he is being tortured with is sexual torture. Because you see, unbeknownst to everybody else around, these two, Lyris and Sai, had a secret relationship going on, and he's being sexually tortured with like her image and the images of his friends. So like at first he's being sexually tortured by her images, and then he's being guilt tortured by like his friends saying, "Oh, you're so weak. How could you have done this? How could you have turned on us?" They're basically make him think that they were all with the plan to go with Metamarco and Molag Bal. But he doesn't break. He realizes it's a ruse, but he doesn't break. Meanwhile, what's going on is, so you're breaking into random Cold Harbor prisons with Lyris, and you kill a couple people, you kill one of Metamarco's lieutenants, and Abner Tharn, who at this point you guys still think is an enemy, reaches out and is pretty much like, I have no love for Metamarco, nor am I a Daedric worshiper. I did this to keep the realm, like, somewhat stable. And even though he's really portrayed as, like, this power-hungry little rat the whole time, he realizes, like, the right thing to do. And he's like, if you guys succeed, my family's name will never be besmirched inside the Empire. Or Cyrodiil, at least, until the events of his family trying to usurp the throne, like, 700 years later. But let's not get into that yet. He flips sides and he joins you guys, and he knows exactly where Sai Sahan is. And so, but the problem is the magic you guys use to get in and out of Cold Harbor at this point can only bring you and one other person, and the only reason you can get in is because you're soulless, and the one other person is because the magic really allows one person to go in, but because you have no soul, you're kind of exempt from that rule at this point. So you get to pick between going with Lyris and going with Abner, and it's pretty much, do you want a warrior companion to go with you or a mage companion to go with you? And it's up to you. Both have some funny kind of interesting dialogue choices that go on when you go with them. If you're a good player, it really doesn't matter who you choose. But you do end up saving Sai Sahan, and he is like, I need to get my weapons. I gave them to my friends at the Abbey of his sword. Basically, he's like the sword singers. They kind of are like special warriors when he's like one of them, and he left his swords there before he was captured, but after he left the Amulet of Kings. And so you guys are like, is that really the most important thing? Can't use any sword? He's like, no, these swords have like the code that we need to get into the place where I had the amulet. And so you're like, okay, we'll get your swords. So you go to his order's home in based on the map, it should be right around like the southern Alakir Desert, so somewhere right around here. And you guys, he then explains that he hid it inside of Sancretor. So you guys go to Sancretor and you get what we have seen multiple times, at least the second time now. Where is the picture? Oh no. Did the picture? Oh, the Amulet of Kings. You guys go and get the Amulet of Kings from Sancretor. So at this point, though, you guys can't do the ritual that'll help you defeat Metamarco. Because Metamarco, there's no way for all of you to get into Cold Harbor to face them. And Metamarco has pretty much retired himself into Cold Harbor, seeing as like he's losing control of Cyrodiil, the Imperial province, and he's losing control of the situation with his old allies, including yourself. Well, at the same time, you are approached by this elf right here in the middle, Vanus Golarion. Now, Vanus Golarion is the founder of the Mages Guild, one of the most aloof characters you'll ever meet. He's very cocky. And he's like, I am the best mage in the world. And I am only somewhat matched by Metamarco. And actually, they are sibling students, Metamarco and Vannis. Vannis followed the good path. Metamarco went down the necromancer's evil path. And even though Vannis is a very ego-driven person, he's always boasting about his greatness with magic, and he is very great at magic. It's not unfounded. He is good. And so Vannis, actually it's Varen and Vannis. So Vannis here, Vannis Galarian, he comes with you and says, I have this plan, and it'll be etched with the glory of all people who take part in it forever. And it is to invade the realm of Coldharbour with an army of mortals to defeat Molag Bal's plans. Because meanwhile, these anchors are coming down all over the place, and it's up to basically just local heroes to put them out and to destroy them, which can be done. So that's all that's going on. He's like, we need to get behind this. So he calls a meeting of all of the major faction leaders. So Emmerich is there, Queen Iren's there, and Yoren the Scald King goes. And they can't come to an agreement. But what happens at this council essentially is Vannis basically goes, I studied at the Sigic Order with Metamarco. He will not stop until he owns everything or his master owns everything. So what happens is the Daedric forces actually attack this council, hoping to kill off the Alliance leadership and Vannis Galarian here. Well, after that, the Alliance leaders are pretty much like, yeah, this is a real issue now. His forces have attempted an attack on our lives. So although they won't agree to stop fighting each other and all put their armies together to go do it, they've agreed to allow the guilds to go. So the two major guilds right now during this period of Tamrielic history that are not shadowy underworld organizations are the Mages Guild, which Vannis is in charge of and founded, and the Fighters Guild, which is basically a guild of mercenary warriors who are extremely skilled and can be found pretty much in every province except for Skyrim, because Skyrim has their own band of mercenaries. So this is a basic view of what the Mages Guild halls look like. A large libraries filled with spell tomes and ancient knowledge. And this is the actual central Mages Guild headquarters where Vannis Galarian himself is. The Fighters Guild, you've got warriors training, and it's usually led by a guy who sends everybody out on contracts, and then the guild master puts them down to local halls, and the local halls give out actual contracts. So what they do is they invade Coldharbour, and the invasion goes well, by all accounts, because you get help from Sir Cadwell, a knight from, I believe, the Kingdom of Wayrest prior to the formation of the Daggerfall Covenant, who is a soulless being inside of Coldharbour at the period, just like yourself, who helps the invasion once they've reached Coldharbour, because not everybody lands at the same place. So he helps everybody find each other, and then they are able to go to this city, which is actually held by Meridia, who is another Daedric prince, but often considered a decent one because she does not she hates undead beings and is usually known as the mistress of light. So, and she's actually not even a real Daedra. She was actually cast out of the primordial spirits for doing special magic, and she just then carved out her own plane of oblivion. But she actually has a city within Coldharbour where she allows this invasion force to gather and attack out and weaken Molag Bal. So in fact, this invasion force attacks the prisons where a lot of the soulless humans or soulless mortals are being kept, and a lot of them are more than willing to join this invasion forces army. And subsequently, you also kill Molag Grunda, which is actually Molag Bal's daughter. Now, she isn't killed indefinitely. She's kind of displaced out of time and space for a while. But she is no longer on the picture. And she was, other than Metamarco, Molag Bal's like greatest ally. So that happens. Well, meanwhile, your allies, where are they? Oh, God, here we go. Did I lose the picture? Apparently, I did. All right. Well, the picture with Sai Sahan, Lyris Titanborn, Abner Tharn, and Veranecularius, the prophet, they all also come with this force, and they're like, well, we're all here now. We can do what we need to do. But first off, Metamarco issues you personally a challenge and is like, come face me, and we will decide who is the greatest of the 5 companions. Because they were calling themselves the 5 companions before. And once the 4 of them are back together, and then Veranecularius basically goes, you should have been the 5th. We messed up taking Metamarco with us. Which is good. So, Metamarco, obscenely mad, challenges you to a fight. They help you in the fight. You defeat Metamarco. And at the end of the fight, Metamarco kind of admits, I'm not doing this to serve Molag Bal. I plan to usurp him. Idiot says it in Molag Bal's dimension, Cold Harbor, and Molag Bal appears and punishes the weakened Metamarco. And you next find Metamarco like this. Because soon after, you guys decide it's time to deal with Metamarco, to deal with Molag Bal himself and get your soul back. And Metamarco here is inside of the actual castle of Molag Bal himself, chained to the floor in writhing magical torture for his betrayal. It's like plotted betrayal. He's like, I am the Lord of Plots. You can't outplot me. So, but even here, you can read the kind of ignorance that Metamarco even still has towards you, that when you come upon him, and you can let him go. You are given the choice to let Metamarco out of that kind of torture. And you're pretty much ready to do it. Oh, the dialogue is like, you're pretty much ready to do it, and then he says this actual line on the screen. He's like, after all that's transpired, I killed you, you simpleton. I saw your life gutter and fade like a candle flame in a tempest. My undead servants drank your blood, and I reanimated your corpse. Do not taunt me with such hilarity about letting him go. And at this point, you actually are given the chance to let him go or not, and it's up to the player. It doesn't change the event of the game at all. It just kind of explains some later events where Metamarco is involved in the lore. And so then you guys do the actual ritual Veranecularius was originally going to do, but the prophet is entirely too weak now and cannot be the one to take on that kind of energy. And this time it's not to become a legitimized emperor, it is to basically just give yourself enough strength to fight a Daedric prince in his own dimension. So be it. And you guys do this ritual, and you're chosen because you have done everything, and this is pretty much the fight to get your soul back from Molag Bal himself. So you do it. You become extremely overpowered, and you do this ritual, and then you fight your way through his castle to him, destroying walls with this power that you've been given, and one-shotting any Daedra that attacks you. And how the lore is explained this power boost, Akatosh, who saw what was going on the whole time, was like, I will basically make you my avatar for the fight. So you are basically, Akatos is kind of inside you, and you become a Dragonborn for a very split second. You're not blessed with the dragon's blood indefinitely, but you become a Dragonborn for a split second. And then you fight Molag Bal yourself, hand with weapons, and somehow defeat him. And when you cut open his chest at the end of the fight, which doesn't kill him, he doesn't die, he's essentially a god, but he's weakened and displaced out of time and space for a while. And it is explained after the fact by Meridia that eventually he'll come back into form, but he'll be extremely weak for a long time. All the souls that Molag Bal was using to power himself are forced back out, and he's out of him and sent into the ethers, and either find their old host, or if their old host's body is dead, then they just go to the afterlife. And Meridia, helping you, actually kind of grabs your soul out of the mix, because it's just easier to give it to you there than have it look for you for a while. And you get your soul back in the game. The main story ends, and you have the opportunity to go to a couple different regions that up till that point were locked out for you. And you get to experience what would have happened if you had woken on the shores of the other alliances, which is really cool. And you get to play through their main stories. And the main stories of the alliances aren't as big of a deal. They don't have as much to do with the main event of the game. They're just to help you have like a story to follow while you're leveling up. But the main quest ends at this point, and you're allowed to do guild quests or join some of the later added content, like the Dark Brotherhood Assassins quest line or other quest lines that were added, like the Thieves Guild. Or you can fight in the war in Cyrodiil and try to become Emperor, because one of the cool parts of the PvP in this game is you are able to fight to become the new Emperor if you are the highest ranking PvP player in your alliance on your server, and your group holds all the forts around the Imperial Isle. Your group gets to have an Emperor, and you get super buffs for a while. And that's pretty much the end of the game for all intents and purposes.
That's actually very fascinating. There's a lot of interesting points here. The main one being how Molag Bal pulls elements of the world into his realm and copies them. What does the Orions tend to do with some of these pocket realms that they're in? Is they will literally make a copy of the area of the world that they're in. They'll basically clone a copy of it. And basically copy every little nuance. So if they want to merge that pocket back with the physical world or this timeline, all they have to do is just kind of molecularly put that clone back into its original self, where they've pulled it out and they can put it back in, and therefore they can arrive with an entire invasion force within a split second like that. And they literally have been able to take over areas. This happened to Mount Shasta with the elves that exist there. Within a split second, they had like basically Syrian elves around them, and Orion servants and reptilians and stuff around them, and they had to get out of Telos City under Mount Shasta. And it was the Mandela effect that the Orions used to actually do this. They literally pulled in and created the clone copy, and then they merged that timeline fragment back into it in order to take over. Like, they could literally train in an area that was exactly the same. And what I find interesting also is there's a couple other points in here. The swords that you mentioned that guy had to get to go back and get the Amulet of Kings. I've actually seen weapons, things that look like weapons that actually are keys, like that they're weapons and keys. Thor's hammer is one of them. Mjolnir in the Norse mythos. I found out on Ancient Maldek, Thor, actually the real Thor, used that to open up part of the Maldekian consciousness. Like he could actually, it was called the Warriors. It was the Warriors Vault. They called it. Odin called this. And it unlocked and made it so that Maldek was not trapped in like a temporal repeat mode anymore. And at that point, the Orions went, screw it, and they blew up the planet at that point. But then the consciousness then was free to come here to Earth, and it melded with the Earth consciousness, and it caused some kind of schizoid behavior for a while with that. But the whole Warrior's Vault thing was that Maldek had a very powerful warrior spirit about it, and it could be transferred to people in times of need, very much like the temporary use of the Dragonborn. And so Odin chose to gate most of it up. Mm-hmm. And so that therefore it wasn't this overbearing, like egocentric type of energy. It's very much like a harness or a yoke would be for a horse or an oxen or something like that, or a set of reins. And Odin created this to where this warrior spirit could be used. If somebody was lacking in it in some way, they could go obtain that energy. And it's interesting how, like what I said in a previous episode, in the Oblivion episode, where the Amulet of Kings was then connected to, you said the Heart of Lorkhan, I believe. Yeah, and that was essentially what the Earth of Keswick hard drive is, where all that information is stored. Well, what happened with that warrior energy? It's in the Earth hard drive here. So you can actually access that in order to copy a certain set of parameters out of the Benevolent Keswick grid and Benevolent Galactic grid, and actually have those gifts bestowed on you temporarily through magical rituals in the very same that you see in the game. So that's exactly historically correct right there, where you could literally take on any genetic traits through technology, utilizing the same thing, or through a ritual, which essentially magic and science are essentially two halves of the same coin. You take on that energy, and it could store in your genetic memory in a temporary fashion, and you can use those gifts or keep certain aspects in your toolbox if you want to use those particular gifts. Now, there are some sorcerer type, magician type people that will steal gifts from people in a similar fashion. They will steal, people will see them, if you could visually see them, they look like keys or stones or crystals or something like that within people, but they represent different abilities within their own personal Keswick. And therefore, magicians can steal these and usurp these from people, add them to their own tool chest, and they gain all of these abilities. So if you basically go after one of these magicians and you cut their head off, you can redisperse those gifts back to whoever they stole them from. Or keep it yourself, which I wouldn't recommend, because those codes are basically all over those particular tools, and you could be linked to whomever that goes to. Now with Coldharbour itself, we've discussed the layers of Oblivion and these pocket realms. And the beginning of the game, as I remember, you get a slight soul shard where you can pass back into the world of the living, kind of like a key. And basically draws you back into the world of the living. The fact that also your fight with Molag Bal at the end, where you take all those souls that he's using to ground himself in this dimension, you set all those souls free and they go back to where they're supposed to. Then that avatar gets sucked back into Coldharbour, where he's grounded. Therefore, think of it this way. He's using those souls as like a grounding rod to come here, very much like you use that shard to come back here. You ground, taking away that grounding in this dimension. Don't leave my head. Okay, taking away that grounding automatically goes back to that pocket, very much like how in the game he's pulling bits of Tamriel and copying them in his dimension so that he could bring everything there. The real guys did it the other way around, to where then they could actually copy themselves here as well. It's a very complicated set of physics that they're using, but these anchors in real life are actually breaking apart. The Cabal uses similar things. This is also how they ground 3D soul trap environments, like in cemeteries and in cathedral areas and places like that, where you have both pyramids and obelisks. that ground a particular energy so that these beings can traverse that territory unimpeded and be grounded in a pocket like that, all the while feeding off the ghost energies. And also other aliens can come in and trade in the ghost energies as well. So this, I find that actually very fascinating when you were going through this, how accurate that actually was. And there's one other point that's very obscurely put in there. When the that second empire was crumbling, and all these other forces invade on that single spot. That is very much like the end of Atlantis, right there, towards the fall. Where, yeah, I even got goosebumps saying that's basically a copy of the fall of Atlantis, to where there were several stages to Atlantis where they got beat up several stages throughout their existence, and then there was one final one where they were gone for good. But in this instance, they invaded different parts of the rest of the world. So when they got in trouble from the Orions, everybody took advantage of some of the Atlantean soldiers that were in different spots when they invaded Greece and other areas of the planet. The other free peoples, the ones that weren't connected to Atlantis, took advantage of their technology not being as powerful and began to push them back from those lands, and eventually converged, also aiding in part of the fall, because the Orions wanted everybody to fight so they could gain energy. And then towards the end, there was this massive nuclear explosion, and then partial flash frozen, and then you have Antarctica after that. But all these forces were pushing them back towards the center, just like in that scene, and with all the provinces coming towards the center like that. And I just got a major confirmation of that as I was talking. I could literally see the soldiers pushing back the Atlantean, some of the Atlantean forces. That some of them looked Viking-like, and some of them merged with some barbaric tribes to create what we know as Vikings and merge that blood in. But there were also all these other factions involved as well. It was an all-out brawl, like you saw in that scene. It was like, it wasn't just two factions; it was a ton of them that were just going all out. And that's how much chaos that these Orions caused at the time of the fall. And so I find that very interesting, that how historically accurate that was, even in that little, seemingly almost mundane detail that told part of the Atlantean history right there. Then that's more recent than the Moldekian history. They've merged both things in there. There's like a 470,000 year gap in between these two events there, but they've merged them both in the game plot, which I found very fascinating.
So the only thing I really got left is a couple of new races that are show up,
Okay.
other than a few variety of Daedra. And I was thinking maybe in the future we could do a show just based on the different types of Daedra that you encounter in the games, because there's so many of them. So.
Yeah. I think that would be very, very interesting, because I know all these Daedra seem to compare to different Orion classifications and different Elven classifications, different race classifications. So yeah, that would be perfect.
So this is the first one. They're called the Lamia. They're based on a real race of mythical beings in our world called Lamia in our world. They're like snake women mixed things. In this one, they're more snake, and really they only have like the upper half of a body of a human and then back to a snake head. But they have like a snake tail.
That's like a Naga, pretty much. Basically, in Hindu myth and lore, there's these snake people called the Naga. I've encountered them before. Some of them have snake heads like this, but for the most part, they have a snake bottom and they have a human top, that they can morph their head from snake to human looking. And we did a Patreon show on the Naga when we first encountered them. And some of them were addicted, like a vampire, to certain energy coatings and stuff like that. And they look pretty much like that. Some of their queens look like that. The females have more of the snake appearance, exactly like that picture, actually.
Yeah, they're portrayed mostly as like a tribal affiliated, not fully intelligent race that uses a lot of magic in this game series. And then the other one is actually a race that we've talked about very briefly throughout our episodes. And it's the first time you actually get to see a depiction of one of the people from this land. And this is an Akaviri.
Mhm.
And in Akaviri, there's different races on Akavir, and Akavir is a separate continent to Tamriel that is geographically to the east of Tamriel across the sea. And the empires of the Tiber Septim Empire have actually attempted to take over Akavir in the past. It never really worked. It's too far away to hold governments on it. And it's kind of a very volatile place. Multiple different races always at war with each other. There's a human race that we don't actually know if currently in like the Skyrim time frame is still alive. But at the time frame of ESO, they had actually invaded and and that's why the Ebonheart Pact rose up. And a few of them that weren't killed off in the Ebonheart Pact led their armies back to defeat these Akaviri invasion. Joined what became helped join the Fighters Guild, and by the events of ESO, which is about 10 to 15 years, well, not fully 10, about somewhere in like the 6 to 10 year range. Prior to the events of ESO, some of them rose in the ranks of the Fighters Guild to a kind of high position, so you meet a couple of them. But they're very rare. And the other races on Akavir are kind of there's a reptilian race that you don't know much about, and then there's a tiger race you don't know much about, and then there's a blue people race you don't hear much about, and that's kind of it for Akavir. You really don't hear much, but you do know that like this almost Japanese look of armor that's why the Blades, who are descended from the very same group of Akaviri that helped Raymond Cyrodiil raise the Second Empire, they base their armor on this look because that is their ancestral motif. And this very same race of Akaviri people invaded at that point and led this invasion in. And this Akaviri motif look got almost intertwined with the Fighters Guild at this period because so many Akaviri that just couldn't get back to Akavir joined the Fighters Guild as mercenaries. But yeah, that's really it for new races.
That I find interesting is that it's loosely based on Untumban lore and Lemurian lore as well, where some of the Untumban factions split off and actually became some of them became dark. There was also in Lemurian lore there were different like cat races and different races associated with Lemuria. So Akavir there seems to be kind of like a loosely based version of Atlantis. There, not Atlantis, excuse me, Lemuria. And the fact that when the Untumbans were, they had their armor just like that, just like how samurai and all of that of them tend to wear armor like that. They came to Earth with armor that looked exactly like that. Other people began to help them out and take on those styles after a while. And so the Japanese people began to see all those things as holy. After a while, they saw it as like a birthright or like a point of honor. After a while, the look and the style and also the way things were kept. You know, and that's actually very fascinating that the Akavir are very similar, even though the Akavir could be pretty much anybody, you know, any races. They basically based that on the races of Lemuria, the different races that were on Lemuria, and some on Atlantis, because there's some Nord in there as well, and some of the white-skinned races as well. But they based it on a lot of the Lemurian folklore and the fact that there was in the real Lemurian history, there was a riot that took place where these Syrian elves got their asses handed to them in a battle, and they ran for the Marquesas, what's the Marquesas Islands now, and Easter Island. They took off and said, "Screw this, we're not going to be overthrown." And then Lemuria got pretty much decimated at that point. The Orions went, "No, we're not going to let you do this." And what was left of Lemuria sank. Some took off as bits of a spaceship out into the Pleiades. Other ones, and some of the Untumbans, which are the Akaviri looking, you know, they took off as well. But there were some factions that were left behind that kind of degenerated a little bit in their thoughts, and some became dark magicians, and other ones became good Agarthan factions, like the ancient Lemurian people, like the ones we know, like ancient Mayan types and stuff like that. Things started to evolve after the major empires were gone. You know, things started to stagnate a little bit and entered an earlier Dark Ages period. We know the Dark Ages is, you know, after the fall of the Romans, but this was like another earlier period after Atlantis and Lemuria were gone. When they were warring, everything was just kind of left in chaos, and some beings de-evolved like giants, and some of them began to there was cannibalism that came about in some parts of the world. It just fell into chaos for a while until it started to unify itself. But yeah, I mean, it didn't all fall into that, but there were I still run into like dark Untumban magicians every now and again. I run into sometimes even dark native sorcerers and stuff like that. I run into that from that time frame. So I find that very interesting. They merged it a little bit. They kind of loosely based it. It wasn't an exact thing, but they did add in some of those the historical details in there. So I find that very fascinating.
Actually, I completely forgot there is one more race.
Okay.
I forgot that was added, so I will show you them here right now.
Okay.
How do I... Yeah, it's these like gorilla-looking, almost Sasquatch-looking people. They're called the Imga.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they're kind of the only other race that I didn't have up there, and they're in the lore described as a primitive primate, non-human race, seen as lesser by every other race. Basically, because they don't really have culture of their own per se. They just like to emulate the high elves to the point where they'll like powder their bodies to appear light-skinned. Mm-hmm. And like walk around all regal, and some of them can speak and some of them can't because just there's that like low tribal, like they're not human but they're emulating humans. Mm-hmm. Like, well, humans as in like intelligent races, and that's the only other race that's in there. But you do fight a couple of them a couple of times in a few of the dungeons, I think, and one of the Alliance quests you do fight an Imga group.
Yeah, they're basically kind of slapping Sasquatch in the face a little bit with that, because they had powerful holdings on ancient Lemuria and they're hyper intelligent. But with that, there are some de-evolved factions that would fall into that category, like face eater factions, or ones that do. I've run into some less evolved types that do emulate other races that are around, or try to bloat themselves by making themselves look like reptilian or something to protect themselves. So there is a factual thing in there. And also, I noticed in the Elder Scrolls series they link them with trolls. You have like the white-haired ones that are like Yeti. That's actually accurate for Yeti. They're more of a reptilian faction with white hair that are in the Shasta area now, and also, of course, Himalayas, all this other stuff. The forest people warned about Yeti for quite some time. Yeti would fall under that category, even though those are primates in the game series. They would fall kind of under that category, that they were used as basically like muscle by the Orion factions and Syrian factions. But there was a bit of a slap in the face of Sasquatch there a little bit, which doesn't surprise me, because I see whenever they want to depict Sasquatch in something at some point, not in everything, but I see that there is to the forest people, sometimes there's this big kick in the balls to them by saying they're unevolved, like cannibalistic type of races, and the Cabal's doing that. And this shows me that this is a spot in the game series where the yield kind of takes place, where some of the writers allowed some of the misinformation to be put in. It seems that the forest people got the kick in the nuts right here for the merging of the not true information and the true information. They linked them with trolls and face eaters, which at one point in the real history, humans and them had a powerful alliance at one point. And did some of their people de-evolve? Like I said, yeah, it did happen. And are some of them asses? Yeah, some of them are. And do some of them do the mimicry? Like I said, yes. And they're known for mimicking sounds. All of them are known for mimicking sounds in the forest of different animals, and like coyotes, birds, owls, different creatures. But I wanted to point that out. The Orions added in that little bit of information to basically kick the forest people in the balls.
The good thing is that bit of information is not seen by many people in these games. It's very rare that you'll come across the Imga in any form other than the Elder Scrolls Online. They have been in the lore before, but they're very rare to actually come across unless you're looking for them. So.
Okay. Yeah. But
kind of like the Sasquatch. You don't come across them unless you're looking for them.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it is with the Sasquatch. You don't come across unless you're looking for them. So that actually works, or unless they're looking for you. But
Oh yeah,
I wanted to add in that bit of disinformation that was just put in there, just a tiny little bit of
nope. Yeah,
disinformation.
it's honestly so rare. It's not. I think it was more just a little bit of misinformation that got slipped in, but it didn't get as big as they wanted it to. So
Yeah, yeah. Mostly what controls that is good, but every now and again, you get a little bit of that sprinkle of disinformation thrown in there, and that's cabal military information. They're geniuses sometimes when it comes to misinformation, and they threw that in there, and it's the forest people that got thrown under the bus in that. So that's very interesting. That came up. I've seen that in multiple shows too, where they're seen as like that. It's not. This isn't the only thing that displays that. But if that's the only bit of disinformation I've actually seen.
yep.
And also with the two brothers that you mentioned further on in the series, I forgot to bring that up with Manny Marco and his brother,
Oh, they're not actual brothers. They're sibling students.
sibling
So
students. Okay.
they both were sibling students under the Sijic Order, which is a very ancient group of like philosopher elf mages. They're
Hmm.
not actual brothers, but they're mirrors to each other in the fact that they were both extremely talented mage students that took two very separate paths.
Okay, yeah, this is loosely based on the whole Enki Enlil thing. It's kind of it's loosely thrown in there. A copy of that story. You see that everywhere. The two brothers warring and quarreling. It's a copy that the AI has kind of replicated all over the place, and it's a loosely based thing on Enki and Enlil as well. But I'm glad we covered this subject today. I think we've hit our cap here with the information. Unless you have anything else to add in that.
I don't. Is there anyone that has come to like give any guidance on what they think of it, galactic wise out?
Let's see. I am feeling a presence. I was hoping somebody would come in because I didn't do any pre-channelings for this episode. So let us see here. I do feel somebody. I can feel the energy raising up, and there has been some resistance today as far as this show goes. Like in the Skyrim one when we had some interruptions in that one. So let me see. Is anybody present? Please, anybody benevolent? Let me rephrase. Is there anybody benevolent? Uh, there's several Fae that are around. Let me see here. Whew. Okay. Can I trust you? Let's see. Uh, Let me see here. Okay, friends, I have my crystal out here. Let's see, which somebody lovingly put a gigantic crack in this morning. I came out and went to rinse it off and went, and it formed a crack in it. So somebody wanted to try to compromise that, like a bottle popping or something like that. So I'm hoping that doesn't fall apart. But let me see. Okay, friends, I see some Fae are converging on this area. Let's see, a lot of tree Fae. Wow, there's a lot of tree Fae coming in here. Some look like those beings that you and I talked about off camera. You said disassembled that slide in your job.
Oh yeah.
Uh, I can see ones that look like them here, and they always remind me of Beavis when they start laughing. When they start laughing, it's like so. Friends, are you the ones wanting to talk? Because there's like a ton of you out here. Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's very strong. Okay. There's like literally 1,000 of these guys out here.
Well, I did ask the elemental groups to like kind of keep the area secure around us for today, so that's probably why.
Yeah, there's like 1,000 of them out here. When I just sent a wave out to see how many were out here, there's like 1,000 of them.
I only did it about an hour ago too, so if I had said it last night, there probably would have been more.
Oh yeah, they were here already. Some of them because they were in the area. So all right. Oh yeah, you have a very strong energy. Let's see. Uh, okay. What, Isaac? You're here too? Okay. What did you just call them?
Oh, here we go.
Okay. I just heard Isaac calling them the Beavis Gremlins. Okay. I'm like, okay. Now, okay. I can agree. Okay. Yeah, they do sound like him. Okay. Isaac, where are you exactly? Okay. Now, I feel you, but you're not the one talking today. Okay. uh, he called some other word. He used some other word other than gremlin. It was like like Beavis Gropa or Grupa, or he used some old word for it. I don't know what it was. He mixed the word Beavis with that. I don't know what he means. It was some insult. They weren't too happy when he said it. So
Could have been their language.
yeah, it was in their language. I think it was in their language. I think it means like idiot or something like that. So,
Yeah.
so let's see. All right, friends, are you going to use collective energy to talk today? It certainly feels like it. Or are you going to elect a representative to talk? A representative, okay. Oh, and you look like almost like a wizard. All right. He looks like a little like little Chinese wizard, but a like with greenish, brownish skin, and he has like this Fu Manchu thing going on, and like he has like these ears that come out to the sides like this. I've encountered this race before. They came through on the Interstellar Council quite a while ago, actually. I recognize your race, actually. Okay, you're one of the wizard class ones. And he has a little staff with a crystal on the end of like a knotted thing. I recognize them. They're an elemental type. So, but there's several in your group that aren't too keen with something here. There's a conflict here. I don't want any conflicting energy. What is in conflict? Um, Energies on the land that are actually pushing on you, because I can feel it from back this way. Okay. It will not disrupt your channel. Okay. And what's your name, friend? The wizard? I'll just call you the wizard. He is not Mr. Wizard Isaac. Yeah, thank you. All right. But he knows physics and magic and all that. That's why. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, they're irritated with Isaac. They're irritated as hell with him for some reason. So let's see. Um, okay. What's your name, wizard? Uh, he just says, use the ant person's analogy, Mr. Wizard. Okay. He just went like that. Okay. All right, friend. Yeah, I've dealt with your people before. You're fine. Except, do you pass an audit from True Benevolent Source Creator, True Benevolent Earth Mother, and the True Benevolent Verses? And are you omitting any information? Any of you? You accept the audit and you're not omitting any information. Thank you. You passed. Thank you. Heart space? Thank you. You passed. All right. All right. You come through the crystal? Okay. Oh, they're apologizing for the reshaping of the crystal. They were using it to they were pumping information through it, and it pushed other codes or something out and reshaped the crystalline structure. Okay. And it cracked it a little bit when they did that. Okay. Thank you. All right. All right. All right. Greetings. We wish to speak a moment on this particular subject we find most fascinating. We know of the world in which Tamriel was based upon, and this is also a mirror of your own histories due to the what you would call the benevolent Akashic copy, as it were. You see, the records that were transferred from that other world, which it will remain nameless as of this moment in time, was copied into the Earth existence earlier on, you see, and also aspects of Dir Maldek and aspects of what the world you call Mars. These aspects were joined into what you know of as the nexus point, and these cultures actually copied remnants and beliefs of those other worlds, which were aforementioned in a previous recording, you see. Those histories then intertwined into your own, therefore also making it available to copy different aspects of those different cultures and magics and knowledge of those different cultures, you see. You see, if the Earth information were copied into another world that was connected to that nexus point, you see, or through a portal, or through what you would refer to as a data dump into another Gaia force, as you would say, some cultures would also start to exhibit similar information and similar habits, similar cultural intertwinings, let's just say. Here is an example of what I am talking. Say you have an adopted child into a family that has different, let's just say, social quirks energetic quirks, and genetic quirks. It has been shown that that adopted child will also inherit these quirks, you see. There is what you refer to as spiritual DNA and bodily or physical DNA, you see. And those, one can copy through spiritual DNA to another, especially if you were involved in soul family or, let's say, adopted family or family that has married in, say, a stepdad or stepmother. These traits can still pass on, and it is a mystery to your scientific community as to how this is done, at least the mainstream. Back in your cabal factions, they know exactly how this is done, and they can copy those energies and deliver certain traits and habits to you that get ingrained into your physical DNA. This is how certain habits form and how they can control people to actually bring about certain traits that they need further down the road if they did not appear in a particular family line. You see, they can mirror certain traits onto another. They can mirror contracts onto another by a mere stamp. Even the action itself, a stamping, will create a false sigil, you see. Just like the copying of the Dragonborn codes onto one that did not possess them. This is a tactic that your military-industrial complex and your cabal know quite well in the performing of some of their rituals. If they do not have the appropriate, say, sacrificial victim, they can recreate one with those codes temporarily. They can do this en masse with certain missing people. But in the positive end, you can take that information and copy it onto another planet. This is also how you get cultures that are similar in the galaxy that aren't related to one another, you see. It's in the galactic, benevolent galactic Akashic grid, as he has put it, you see. It is the breath of creation that one culture could look and act like another, but their paths have never crossed. For the most part, a lot of them have crossed and are related. But if there are other cultures out there that have not crossed, and they look and act the same. This is through what you would call the butterfly effect. Also, the fact that these codes have been transferred, and these are divergent, as you would say, populaces that have paralleled one another, and their paths have never crossed. This is actually a technique that is also being explained within the game. This is actually very fascinating, where you can actually channel power and you can actually bring power about that may be yours temporarily, that a tool that you can use in any given moment, as he was putting it with the magicians and the witches. This is also some of the magics that are being used against some of your people now to actually break alliances, form other rotten alliances, let's just say, and to break up relationships by destabilizing the etheric DNA to the point where they are no longer compatible, let's just say, soulmates, or a compatible Rubik's Cube, as he has put it. These are magical techniques that can be fought against by basically putting all these magical contracts and techniques into a magical, as you would say, flux, to where it is neither here nor there. So therefore, a simple action of snapping the fingers, or a blink, or a mannerism, or an intention, therefore can cleanse the etheric DNA, no matter where it came from, that it is back to its base set of templates. These are base codes of the soul and base codes of the etheric DNA woven into the very genetics in which you have currently. I know this was a mouthful set of specifics, but I can actually take questions currently.
So from your people's perspective, how accurate are some of the imagery and lore of this game series that we've talked about now a few times to actual history that your people have seen on this planet?
It is actually quite accurate, even to this specific game, the way the cultures look and interact. As you would say, flood times, the Earth was actually quite different. Our people mingled with a series of other people, say cat races, elven races, different variants in between, different human types that even no longer exist on your Earth currently have different skin colors that you currently do not possess amongst yours. Blue is one of them, but they still exist. There was yellow and green as well. Even though you do have yellow, as you would say, Chinese people, there was a different yellow or golden pigmentation that was once here as well. The peoples of Tamriel, even within this particular specific game, Elder Scrolls Online, this is actually quite accurate as to how some of them mingled. They warred, they fought, they broke bread together, they did business together, they shared and traded with one another. This was the pre-flood Earth, and also the pre-Maldekian destruction Earth was also very much like this, where giants and even intermarried with what you would call regular human women. You could elves fell in love with regular humans, or the humans that existed at that time. Even other cultures, such as myself, would walk in the forests and walk in the mountains and walk underground with humans, even in post-Atlantean histories, even after that disaster took place, and the cultures fell into a forgotten barbarism. The state of Tamriel in Elder Scrolls Online is very much like those times. This is what was being reflected, and also knowing the fact that the cultures can come together once again, even now, in the forgotten times of your history. All of these game histories are coming out and converging on this point in time. You would call this point in time the prophesied period in your histories, but it is a little more complex than that. Some of your prophecies have gained a certain lackluster over the periods of years where the Orions or the Dark Orions have manipulated it with disinformation. But just know you are in the times where they would call end times, but not an end. It is a changing over of a new era, you would say, or some would call it year zero, meaning the changing over to a new era, very much like the different eras in your game series you see going from second to third era. This is the brand new era. Some, as I've said, call it year zero, but it is actually a little more complex than that. It is re-entering another age where you will see events turn out very much like in your Elder Scrolls series and Elder Scrolls Online, where the different races are going to be interacting on an even footing, even shaking hands with one another, even arguing with one another for a brief period over who owns what, who traded what, and what histories are accurate, and what belief systems are accurate. So a lot of details to iron out, but it will not end in an all-out conflict like it did in the past. It will not end in that because certain Orion forces will no longer be present to incur the fighting. People will be left to their own devices. And all of these cultures will not necessarily seemingly show up overnight, but the ironing out process will take some time. But it will re-enter that state again where everybody sees everyone not only as an equal, but is just having been there or just a normal part of life. This is why this particular game series is so very, very accurate.
All right. And my only other question is, I'm getting a very distinct feeling that your racial consortium was shown as the Bosmer inside the game series.
Indeed, yes. That particular elf race, even though there are particular wood elves, let's just say, that have more of a human appearance, we do indeed live within the forests very much like the Bosmer and very much like any type of forest elves in that respect. And we do have a descendant lineage that is from that other set of planets that I have mentioned that are very much like Tamriel. We do originate from there, even though we are native to Earth. This particular version of myself, let's just say, is native to Earth. Our souls and original physical forms do come from there, from a Bosmer-like existence, yes.
All right. Thank you for your presence here today for this episode of Galactic History in the Media. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was an honor. Thank you. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, he was interesting. Yeah, he was showing me in my head. He was showing me the human-looking, like Bosmer type elves, and then his race. It's like they're related to one another. It's like also these other Fae that are around, the mischievous ones. It's like they're related, but they shrunk in size after a while, and they got kind of like this weird hunched over look after a while. But they're all related. It's not that they degenerated; it's our magnetic fields and energy fields changed them in some way.
Well, that's very much like how the Bosmer became the Bosmer in the Elder Scrolls lore. They were a group of high elves that made a pact with the forest, and it's called the Green Pact, and it changed their physiology to make them like perfect hunters.
Hmm.
And they shrunk in size, and they got that like very slender face, and they made them like almost a bit more hunched over just because they got an increased agility.
Hmm.
They were more flexible, and really the Green Pact did that. And then there was a few like rules imposed on like how like they kind of made their own religion based off of it.
Hmm.
So like instead of how like you know how like there's religions here that you can't eat certain meats,
Yes.
the Green Pact created it where they couldn't take from nature.
Oh, okay.
All that they could eat was meat, and it was what they killed. And if they killed it, they had to eat it in its entirety, to the point that even in war, like if you killed a person in war, you had to do that.
Oh, okay.
Like that's how strict the Green Pact was for them.
Okay. Okay.
And it's like if they wanted to make a house out of wood,
Mhm.
they couldn't just go fell a tree in their own forest. They would actually have to go buy wood from a race that could fell trees.
Oh, so they had to be dependent on everyone else. Okay. Yeah.
It's really like complex, and I don't know everything about the Bosmer's Green Pact, but I know that like when they went into the Green Pact, it changed their race and imposed those sort of rules. I don't think it was so they had to be relying on everyone else. I think it was more, it was the agreement that they made the forest that they wouldn't take plant life, and they rarely actually like got wood for things.
Hmm.
They usually either used like chitin, and they were allowed to take metals and like metal ores and stuff.
Hmm.
They really were just not allowed to use plant material, and their homes are usually like magically made out of like they use magic to deem how something will grow.
Okay, that actually makes sense, and they're actually saying they're agreeing with everything you're saying because it's talking about the origin of their race, pretty much, and they're basically saying, yeah, they were one form once. And what's the pact? What's that pact refer to in your own histories? How accurate is that pact? Was it with Orion forces? Did Orion screw you over, or was it someone else that helped devolve you? It wasn't just Orion's, it was Orion controlled forces at that time. Oh, yeah, because there's an old gate there near those worlds where Orions did have an impact on those Tamriel-like, the Tamriel-like system. But they're no longer there, and they've been cut off since that point. But there was like a pact or a contract. Has that been dissolved? It has been dissolved. Okay. That was very similar to how you were saying that they were restricted on what they could eat, restricted on what they could do. But they found a workaround, and they did their forms. I don't want to say degenerated. That's the wrong word.
They were just changed.
They were just changed. Yeah, but they were more like human looking prior to that. And from what I understand, there are still some that were outside of that still look the same as they did before the transformation.
Yeah, because this was a sect of the high elves that did this. So yeah.
Yeah. And the ones of Mount Adams, they said they looked very similar to like some of the ones that are on Mount Adams, which look like high elves. So yeah, and some are more like they're showing me some that kind of dress in like leather type of outfits. You know, like they're showing me like a female one, like with like long hair that has like the two-piece leather type of deal. And they said there are some on Earth that look like that too. Like they look human, they look like that, and they're skilled hunters, like with the bow and everything. And they actually are on the Earth's surface, also a descendant lineage. So you have two distinct lines here that are related because of a pact like that. This is how they're giving me that download as I'm listening to them. So now I understand why they look the way they do, you know, and they act the way they do. So that's very, very interesting. And also this particular type, they will do work for you. If you like leave a stone or something for them. I came to find out a friend of mine actually told me this, that he's actually a witch himself or a warlock himself, and these beings listen to him. When he asks them to do something, they do it. He found out he came from a particular line that could control them and or talk or order them in some fashion.
Consensual, like support, like.
Yeah, yeah, they follow it, but they feel more compelled to follow it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like I can whip them and just go, like that. No, it doesn't work like that. I would expect it.
Their race name?
Huh?
What is their race name?
Race name? Yeah, what is your race name? Humans have called them gremlins, but that's not entirely accurate. Or not ogres, but like goblins and stuff like that. But what are you actually called? Even your other descendant cousin lineages and stuff like that, what are you actually called as a whole? They're trying to translate the word into an English word. It would translate more into forest dweller or forest like magic wielder or something like that. But what's a single word or even a syllable?
It's like I'm getting a name transmitted sort of to me.
What are they telling you?
I'm hearing like Bazimukai or something similar to that. Bazimikwe or something.
Yeah.
It's like Cosmer, and then with like Equi or Qi or something on the end.
Like, yeah, they said you're dead on. It's Bosumqui is how. Yeah. That's very interesting. Bosumqui is what their name is. So their name has been partially used in the game series as well.
That's why I was getting the whole the Bosmer. Yeah. All right. Well, I think this is a good time to finish this one up.
Yeah, that's been very fun, everyone. Thanks to the Bosumqui for showing up today. I didn't know their names before. I'd encountered them about a year or two ago. I didn't know who they were. So that I found that very interesting. So thank you, everybody, for watching this episode of Disclosure in the Media, the Elder Scrolls Online game. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.